Okay, so today I'm going to be reviewing Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. This is book 1 in the Percy Jackson series. This is the series that you guys voted on me to read, and I really enjoyed it. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. I am going to go into some spoilers at the end, but if you're here just for spoiler-free, you don't have to watch that part. So you probably know what this is about. Demigods or half-gods. What are they called? They're called demi. Percy is a half-god, his father is a god, and his mother is not. The story kicks off with him in a school. He's been kicked out of a lot of and he has dyslexia as well as ADHD, both of which are significant to the plot of the story. He finds out about his parentage, and then he is required to go to, or he just goes to this place called Camp Half-Blood, where he trains to fight off kindly ones and other monsters that try to kill him because of his godlike status. And then he goes on an adventure. That's the summary. I loved this. I enjoyed so many things about this book. First of all, I loved that Percy was dyslexic. I don't think I've ever read about a dyslexic before. And such, like, these throwaway lines, like there was a card that he had to read with fancy script and he could barely make any sense of it, or just words being jumbled, or just like, there were so many throwaway lines that I read, and when he was talking about dyslexia, I was like, yes, that's how I feel. That is what it's like. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody else describe what it's like to be dyslexic. It's so funny because my cousin was just asking me about dyslexia because she was writing signs for a museum and she wanted to know how to make them the most accessible for the most amount of people. And I was trying to give her examples of the kind of things that I can't read because it makes me dizzy and gives me a headache, and it just doesn't make, it gets jumbled in my head. And Percy's talking about those same things, and I'm just like, it felt good. It felt like I was being validated. Like, no, you're not crazy. This is a thing. This is a thing that people experience. It's such a small thing, but it made me so happy. The friendships in this book were awesome. There were so many different, I really don't know a lot about Greek mythology, so I don't know anything that's going on here, but I found it so interesting learning about these different gods and their positioning. I liked how they were portrayed. The other different creatures in this world were so much fun to come across. Like, it was just a fun, charming story. I just had so much fun exploring this world, and Rick Riordan did a phenomenal job of building up this mythology, or rather using this mythology to build up such a charming and fun world to dive into. I had to switch my brain a little bit at the beginning because I had to kind of switch out of like critical critique, wanting everything to make sense mode, and kind of just switch into just letting the story take me on a journey. I don't read a lot of middle grade, so this was a unique experience for me because I'm used to really wanting a lot of details for how things work and why they work, and I want them all to fit perfectly. I want characters' motivations to make sense, and that's not what I needed to be expecting out of this book. So at first I had a little bit of a struggle with some of the things that were happening, and I was like, why would you do that though? And then I just had to stop and I switched my brain to just let this be a story that takes you for a ride. And once I switched into that, man, it was fun. I think I definitely enjoyed the first third and the last third the most of this book. The middle section kind of went into this sort of pattern of like, meet a monster, fight the monster off, make a bad decision, meet a monster, fight the monster off, make a bad decision, meet a monster, fight the monster off. And I don't like that. And I know it's a kid's story, and like that kind of formulaic thing is pretty normal, but it got stale. But that wasn't a large section of the book. It was just maybe 5 chapters, and then it was done, maybe 4 chapters. But for the most of this book was either exploring this whole new world and these new characters, or this cool, fun, exciting adventure at not the getting there, but the being there. And I enjoyed it so much. It's definitely not like a new favorite for me or anything like that, because I do really like those more logical and intense, and here's all the details about the world, and here's how the mechanics of how it all works and fits together, and really complex characters and all that stuff. And I not that these characters aren't complex, they're certainly not shallow, but I definitely have a preference for my books. But also this was so different from something that I normally read, and it just made me smile a lot and laugh a lot. And Percy himself was such a great protagonist. I have read so many books with such bland and boring protagonists lately that Percy was such a nice change. I really enjoyed following him. And I'm gonna dive into spoilers now, so if you haven't read the book, I can't imagine why you haven't, but bye. For those of you that want to hear more in-depth thoughts from me, the parts that I kind of struggled with at the beginning were the fact that Percy is this demigod, I'm pretty sure is what they kept calling him. So he needed to go to Camp Half-Blood because he was attracting these monsters, especially because he's one of the big three. And so he smells a lot. And so the monsters, they come and get him. And so when they first sent him out on this quest, and they were like, okay, you're gonna go on a quest and you're gonna travel across America, you and this other demigod, alone, with Grover, but together, we're gonna smell more, you're gonna smell stronger, you're gonna attract more monsters, and you couldn't have survived on your own, but the two of you were gonna attract more monsters, you should go. And I know they had Grover there to protect them, but also these characters not Percy and Annabeth, but the adults didn't really have a lot of faith in Grover, so I don't really see him as that much of an advantage in their eyes. And then there were a couple of other little scenes during the more formulaic middle part where I was just like, okay, I know the kids, but also you just lost your supplies an hour ago, and already you're making this terrible decision of going into this dark warehouse with this old woman when Grover is telling you, I smell monsters, let's leave. But you're like, free food, this can't go wrong. But again, I would just have to remind myself, listen, you're on for the ride. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Also Percy's parentage, I did think that it was pretty obvious, but also I'm 27 and this is targeted for younger kids. So it makes sense that it wouldn't be super hidden. You want kids to be able to figure it out too. But between, let's see, what were the things that happened? The fountain, and then the toilet, and I think there was one other water thing that he did. But as soon as he got to Camp Half-Blood, and like I said, I don't really know anything about Greek mythology, but as soon as he got to Camp Half-Blood and we were describing the different gods, I was like, oh, well, he belongs to the water god, right? Which he did. And I was really happy that the kids figured it out before it was revealed on page. I think that I would have, even though it's a middle grade book, and I don't know how to discuss middle grade, I'm sorry if I'm being too critical, please forgive me. This is all relatively new for me. I don't read a lot of middle grade. I would have been frustrated if the clues were so in your face and it was a shock to everybody. So I was really appreciative when Percy ended up, when they goaded him to get into the water and they set him up to show that he is Poseidon's son. And then when it was revealed, it was really satisfying, and I was really happy the way that went down. I moved outside because Corey and Drennan came inside and they're gonna be loud while they're making cookies. So, I also wanted to talk about the god Ares. Ares is probably how you say it. So let's talk about I want to talk about so many things, actually. Hang on. Let's talk about Ares first, because he shows up first. And I did automatically suspect him because he sent them off on this wild goose chase just to laugh at them and to give them supplies. And that just seemed like not something the God of War would do or concern himself with. Oh, hey, here's some kids I can mess with and then give them free things. It just didn't make sense. So I figured, okay, he's the god of war. The gods are currently warring. He probably did it. But before Ares showed up, I was suspecting Luke, but only a little bit, because the reason was because when they were in, was it before or after? Actually, now I'm not sure who I suspected first. Either way, I suspected Luke too, because when they were in the car wash and they were doing the rainbow thing and they were communicating with Luke and he was like, have you used my shoes? Did you use my shoes? And I thought, why do you care so much, buddy? It's not just, oh, I want to be helpful. Nice one. And then he kind of planted seeds of suspecting Annabeth. And he was saying that only someone who's invisible would be able to do that. And then he was like, oh no, but I don't mean Annabeth. And I just thought, you're trying to be misleading. But I did not suspect that he was being influenced by Kronos, or even that Ares, the god, the other one, was being influenced by him at all. I thought that, you know, Luke is the son of the god of thieves. Hey, baby. Luke is the son of the god of thieves, and so, like, naturally he did it, right? He stole the items. But I did not suspect that they were both being controlled by the dad of the gods. I really, really enjoyed the scenes in the underworld as well. I thought it was so interesting and so cool, the different locations that people can go after they die, like that field that's like a Kansas City field for all of eternity. And Percy's like, ooh, that's harsh. And then you've got the place of torment and suffering, and then you have the place for only the people that are like really, really good and did a lot of good acts. I wanted more from that. I wanted more about the queues that they had to stand in for a really long time, and the different, like the judgment for the ones that decided to do judgment, and then the easy death. That was so interesting too. Just basically everything that happened in the underworld. That was some of my favorite parts. I loved the underworld. The other thing too that really confused me is when Grover's shoes randomly just took off and tried to go into the pit that I now realize Kronos was in. Kronos was in. So when that happened, and I know that Luke gave them the shoes and Percy was supposed to be wearing them, Luke really wanted him to be wearing them, then I'm like, okay, so Luke did do it, but then also I'm pretty confident Ares did it, and I couldn't figure it out. Like, I couldn't put two and two together, because Luke is not Ares' son, and I don't think that you can just pretend to be another god's son. Like, I'm pretty sure that the god of theft and travelers, I'm pretty sure he claimed Luke. So I suspected Luke, but I also suspected Ares, and I was pretty sure they both did it, but they don't connect. They don't make sense together. So I couldn't figure out how it worked or how they worked together. And it was Kronos, and that's really, really interesting, especially because the gods refused to accept that it was him, which means that book 2, he's still gonna be an antagonist, which I'm down for. Oh, I forgot another thing that I kind of had to like not be hypercritical about, and that was when Percy's mom died, which Percy's mom is like the one good thing in his life. When she died, he was sad, but we moved on so fast, and he didn't stop being sad, but we did stop talking about it. And that was kind of hard for me, because I was like, this is something that we should be feeling longer, and it felt like it was just kind of brushed under the rug. And I understood it after his mom was saved, and I was so happy that she was saved, and I was so happy that she got out of her abusive marriage. I'm happy that Percy's gonna go home. Means we're gonna fight some more monsters at the beginning of book 2. I'm happy that we still have Kronos. I'm happy that we still get to hang out with the gods. I enjoyed this a lot. I had a really good time reading it. It's not the type of thing that I normally read, but I'm really happy that I read it, and I will be continuing on with the series. Thank you guys for encouraging me to read this. Be sure to chat with me more about it in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.